All right, I feel that this lesson is probably the most important lesson overall. It's no accident that this is right smack in the middle of the lessons that we've put together. Now, your math score is figured from an algorithm that is basically the sum of a group of math equations or problems that come up with one number. What I mean by that is that the total is a piece of pie that's been divided into 5 pieces. Each piece carries its own weight. So, sometimes people get a bunch of inquiries on there and they feel that it's destroyed their credit score, but new credit is only 10% of that overall credit score. So it really can only affect you so negatively. Now, sometimes people will remove negative items and their score might actually go down. Now, that's not a bad thing, okay? Your score is going to fluctuate and it's going to need some room to breathe. I really want you to start visualizing your credit score as though it is a living organism. It really is. And as the sooner you realize that, the sooner you're going to be able to implement that thinking when you make decisions that are based off of your credit. So let's say you have a 580 credit score and you remove a bunch of negative items and your score disappears. Well, your payment history is 35% of that score and the length of your credit history is 15%. That's half your score right there. And so what happens is if you take off all negatives and you have nothing else on your credit score, the algorithm isn't able to complete itself and come up with a number. So it has incomplete data because there's no length, there's no history there to base those numbers on. So sometimes I've had clients call me and they're like, Jeremy, what'd you do? My score disappeared. And I tell them, look, that's a great thing. Why do you desperately want to hold on to a credit score in the 500s? That doesn't make any sense. It's better to have those items removed, start anew, get those positive lines, you can go from there. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard that phrase, it's better to have bad credit than no credit. I am a little bit at odds with that. Typically, those that say that to you are those that want to lock you into a very high interest rate. And they need a score to give you lending, okay? And so you don't want to get into that trap. We're going to talk about some of those traps later on. There's a handful of traps, really, that people fall, they get themselves into, and we just want to circumvent that, get past it all. Okay, we want you guys to, again, master your credit, which is why we're here. So the other 2 parts of that pie are the amounts owed, which is 30% of your score. Sometimes people get this belief that their credit score has something to do with their income. And it's not necessarily their income, but if you have a very low income, your ability to pay stuff back is less likely than someone that has, a 6-figure income. And so your income has a lot to do with your score, but when calculating your score, your income has nothing to do with it. So types of credit in use is that's 10% of your score. And so, having like a signature loan and a credit card and a mortgage, just having that mix, again, it's like getting your muscles bigger on that skeleton frame. And so I want you guys to pay a lot of attention to those 5 things. There is a pie chart in one of the downloads. I want you to get that, print it off, and I want it on your in your home office, your desk, wherever, your kitchen. Anything you do in the future, someone asks me, hey, do you want to open this credit card? $10,000 limit. My way of thinking is, okay, that's $10,000, the kind of balances that I have on my other scores, and I'm running all these numbers in my mind, and I make that decision based on how I see that is going to affect my score. Now, there are things that will also affect your score for a moment, and then they will get better. Myself, I've had excellent credit, better credit in my past than I do even now. I've had to do credit repair. I'm an actual client myself. I feel like the guy who has hair and he used to be bald, and he's saying that he's his best client. But you know, I went once from going to no score to the mid 600s by opening up a credit line. Sometimes people, they'll see their score go down a little bit because it's a new line of credit. But again, it breathes and it starts to live, and a year later you're going to have better credit because of that. So don't be frightened if your score goes down or even disappears. The main goal is to get negatives off your score. You don't want to be associated with the negatives, okay? So writing this all the way out, you got to be tough sometimes. Again, it's for the ideal client, they're not going to have any hiccups like that. But for those of you that do, always look at something that's alarming, that might be a negative, and think, how could this be a positive? That critical, that open-minded way of thinking is going to be advantageous to you always. So, yeah, that's about where we're at. Really get to learn this this pie chart, and really your knowledge of this simple thing is going to give you that huge edge in becoming a credit expert yourself. Okay. If you can recite the numbers from that pie chart, you're going to sound like an attorney, you know, going over law. So it's exciting stuff. We'll see you guys next week.